What if the deepest betrayal doesn't come with screaming or slamming doors, but with silence? What if the one you trusted the most simply faded when you needed them the most? And what if loyalty was never about who smiles beside you on sunny days, but who stays when the storm hits hardest? There's a kind of betrayal that doesn't leave behind broken plates or angry text messages. It's quieter, subtler, but somehow it cuts even deeper. It's when someone you gave your heart to, someone you trusted with your presence, your loyalty, your precious time, chooses ease over effort. When life gets hard, when everything starts to feel heavy, they don't hold tighter. They disappear. They were all in when everything was going right. When blessings poured in and life felt light, they were clapping the loudest in your corner. But the moment adversity crept in, when struggle showed its face, they vanished without a trace. That's not just walking away. That's betrayal in its most disguised form. You see, loyalty isn't proven in the sound of laughter or in moments of celebration. Loyalty is tested in silence, in pain, in the middle of chaos. It's not about who shows up when it's easy. It's about who stays when it's excruciatingly hard. And if someone walked away from you at your lowest, when your soul was running on empty, they didn't just betray your trust. They betrayed your worth, because love is never just a feeling. It's a choice. And when someone chooses to quit the moment it gets uncomfortable, the truth is, they never truly loved you. Let me tell you something real. People will claim they care. They'll promise loyalty. They'll say, "I've got your back." But fire always reveals the truth. It exposes the ones who are only standing beside you for the spotlight, not for the struggle. And here's where so many people get it wrong. They try to justify that kind of betrayal. Maybe they were dealing with something. Maybe I was too much to handle. Maybe I expected more than they could give. But let me speak truth into your heart. Real love doesn't run. Real loyalty doesn't retreat when life gets hard. If they left while you were bleeding, they weren't your partner. They were just passing through. And don't you dare feel guilty for needing someone beside you. That's not weakness. That's covenant. That's relationship. You're not asking for too much when you expect someone to stay through joy and pain. You're asking for what true commitment was meant to look like. And if someone chose the easy road when you were walking through the valley, that's not someone you need to hold on to. That's someone you need to release. Because betrayal doesn't always look like backstabbing. Sometimes it looks like abandonment. And sometimes it doesn't even look like someone leaving at all. They might still be there, still in the room, still in your life, even still in your bed. But their heart left long ago. They stopped praying with you. They stopped caring about your tears. They become a ghost with a familiar face. And that, my friend, is betrayal too. Because when someone chooses not to show up emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, even if their body is physically present, they've broken something sacred. Halfway, love is worse than none at all. It leaves you confused, empty, clinging to someone who's already gone. You've got to protect your soul from people who treat commitment like a season. The kind who only show up when the sun is shining, but vanish at the first drop of rain. Because storms are coming, that's life. And if they won't stay with you in the storm, they don't deserve to celebrate in your breakthrough. Don't give a seat at your table in triumph to someone who couldn't stand with you in the fire. So now, let's talk about what really happens. Not when they leave, but when you choose to stay silent in the face of that betrayal. Because sometimes, silence says more than any confrontation ever could. You see, when someone chooses to abandon you in the valley, they don't deserve a seat beside you on the mountaintop. That was never love. That was conditional convenience, dressed up as commitment. And that kind of love? You outgrow it. Forgiveness is between you and God. It's a sacred act, not a performance. Yes, you forgive. You release the bitterness. You let go of the grudge, because carrying it only weighs you down. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the storm. Don't forget who went silent when your soul was screaming. Don't forget who vanished when the pressure rose. The storm didn't just shake your life, it exposed the foundation of those around you. Some people weren't placed in your life to stay. They were there to reveal a test, a lesson, a mirror to show you what real love and loyalty should never look like. And when that test is over, you don't circle back. You don't retake it. You learn, you grow, you heal. And most of all, you thank God that you saw the truth in time. Because loyalty is never revealed in the easy seasons. It's uncovered in the chaos. It's in who stays when things fall apart, not who shows up when everything's together. And if someone walked away when they were supposed to walk beside you, that's a betrayal you do not excuse. That's a moment you never forget, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. There's something sacred about vulnerability. When you strip off the mask, when you open your heart and let someone see the raw, unedited version of you, that's not small, that's not simple. That's soul-level trust. When you invite someone into your pain, into the stories behind your scars, you're offering them something sacred. That isn't casual. That isn't light. So when someone takes that trust and turns it against you, that's not just painful. That's betrayal in one of its most brutal forms. Because betrayal doesn't always wear the face of an enemy. Sometimes it's the one who held your hand, the one who promised safety, the one who stayed up at midnight, hearing your secrets and said, "You can trust me." Until one day, their tone changed, their loyalty shifted, and they used what you shared as ammunition. They didn't just hurt you. They violated your essence. They crossed a line that words like, "I'm sorry," or "I didn't mean it," will never fully erase. If someone has ever thrown your trauma back in your face during an argument, if they've ever gossiped about your wounds or twisted your past into a weapon, hear me clearly. That was not a slip-up. That was a betrayal of your humanity, of your soul, and no apology, no excuse can take away the choice they made with the most vulnerable part of you. What they didn't understand is that it took everything in you to open that chapter, to speak those words, and instead of handling it with gentleness, they chose judgment, manipulation, exposure. That doesn't make you weak for sharing. It simply proves they were never worthy of hearing your truth in the first place. Because when you're vulnerable, you're not asking for someone to fix you. You're not even asking them to carry your pain. You're asking them to treat it with care. And if their response is to twist, shame, or exploit what you gave in trust, they're revealing something broken in them, not in you. Some people don't study your wounds to heal them. They study them so they know exactly where to strike when the time comes. They smile while watching you bleed. That's not love. That's a warning. And as we continue, let's go even deeper into what it means to protect your peace when people misuse your openness, and how silence becomes your greatest strength in a world that feeds on noise. When trust is broken at the deepest level, it doesn't always explode. Sometimes it fades, quietly. And as we just saw, the deepest wounds often come not from strangers, but from the people you trusted with your soul. That's real. That's why the pain from betrayal hits harder when it's personal, when it's wrapped in the face of someone you once called home, and you have every right to protect yourself from that kind of pain ever again. Now don't get it twisted. This isn't about bitterness. It's not about revenge. I'm not saying you shouldn't forgive. Forgiveness frees you. What I'm saying is this: don't extend a second chance to someone who turned your vulnerability into a weapon. Because love doesn't humiliate. Trust doesn't punish. Loyalty doesn't take your deepest whispered battles and leak them into public spaces like dirty laundry. That kind of betrayal, it cuts in ways we rarely talk about. It doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your understanding of what love is supposed to be. You start to question the foundation itself. Was it ever real? How could they do that with what I gave them? At some point, you have to pause and ask yourself a hard question. Who has access to my soul? Who are you giving front row seats to your healing journey? Because not everyone deserves that view. Not everyone can be trusted with your scars. And just because someone says, "I'm sorry," doesn't mean they're safe. An apology without changed behavior is just manipulation dressed in a better outfit. Some betrayals don't call for closure, they call for boundaries. Not every bridge is meant to be rebuilt. You've grown. You've cried too many tears alone. You've held yourself up through storms no one even saw. You don't need to keep explaining yourself to people who only want information, not connection. So please, don't reopen the door for someone who took your whispered truth and sharpened it into a blade. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's violation. Plain and simple. A betrayal that echoes long after the words are gone. You're not bitter. You're not cold. You're wiser. You've learned that trust is sacred and hearts are not toys. And when you hand someone your heart with trembling hands and they drop it, that is not something or final text messages. It creeps in slowly, quietly, and suddenly, someone you love stops showing up. Not physically, but emotionally. They're still sitting beside you, still under the same roof, still sleeping in the same bed. But the warmth is gone. The attention, the connection, the heartbeat of the relationship, it's missing. And somehow, that kind of silence is louder than any fight. Because when someone checks out emotionally, when they stop being curious about your thoughts, your struggles, your joy, that's abandonment too. Just because they didn't walk out doesn't mean they didn't leave. Love isn't just physical presence. It's emotional engagement. It's choosing over and over to see the person in front of you. And when someone stops seeing you, when they ignore your efforts, your tears, your needs, they've made a choice, a decision to withdraw, to go emotionally numb. And that choice slowly unravels the foundation of the relationship. Some of the loneliest people in the world go to sleep next to someone every single night. They feel invisible in their own home. And that pain, it's a quiet ache that lingers because you remember. You remember when they used to ask how you were and actually cared. When they listened with their eyes, not just their ears. When they held your hand with intention, not just routine. And now, they barely look up from their phone. You try to make sense of it. You question yourself. Did I change? Did I do something wrong? Why does it feel like I'm disappearing in front of them? But let me speak this truth into your heart. You are not crazy. You are not asking for too much. Emotional connection isn't extra. It's essential. When someone builds walls instead of bridges, when they treat you like background noise, that's not presence. That's emotional absence. That's betrayal wrapped in routine. Because relationships aren't built on what's visible. They're built in the unseen, in the effort, the empathy, the checking in, the showing up without being asked. And when that dies, what's left is a shell, a routine, a performance. But it's no longer love. And I need you to understand. Emotional abandonment is just as harmful, if not more, than someone physically leaving. At least when they leave, the break is clear. But when they stay without staying, it creates confusion that wears down your spirit, slowly, daily, silently. And if you've been shrinking to survive in that kind of silence, then it's time to stop. Because the next thing we need to talk about is this. How do you reclaim your space and protect your peace, even when the person closest to you stopped seeing you long ago? When emotional presence fades, when someone you love is still there but no longer with you, something inside begins to shift. And often, it starts with your silence. You stop asking for what you need, not because your needs disappeared, but because you're exhausted, tired of being met with blank stares, brushed off responses, and emotional walls. So you go quiet, you shrink, you try to keep the peace by losing pieces of yourself. But hear this clearly. Love that costs you your voice is not love. Love that asks you to be invisible so someone else can feel comfortable. That's not partnership, that's erasure. When someone betrays you not by leaving, but by staying halfway, by neglecting your emotional needs, by refusing to lean in when you're breaking. It's not a small crack, it's a deep fracture, one that cuts far below the surface. And no amount of time, routine, or shared history can cover the damage created by emotional detachment. You deserve more than that. You deserve presence that actually sees you, love that listens before you even speak, a partner who doesn't just sit beside you out of obligation, but sits with you, heart to heart, soul to soul. Someone who looks into your tired eyes and says, "I'm here, I still care, I still choose you, even in the mess, even in the silence." That is what commitment looks like. That is what covenant feels like. Don't settle for bodies without souls. Don't accept "I'm here" when their heart checked out months ago. Don't blame yourself for someone else's refusal to engage. Love takes effort. Real love leans in, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. So, when someone chooses to stay disengaged, to let distance grow, to remain physically present while emotionally absent, that is betrayal too. And no amount of "I'm sorry" can undo the damage done by long-term neglect. Some betrayals? They're not meant for reconciliation. We've been taught that forgiveness equals reunion, that to forgive is to reopen the door, to let someone back in, to trust them again. But there are wounds so deep, so intimate, that trying to rebuild with the same hands that broke you isn't healing. It's re-injury. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the hurt didn't happen. It doesn't mean excusing what was said or done. No, forgiveness is about releasing yourself from the prison of bitterness, anger, and resentment. It's about freeing your spirit, not erasing the past. But hear me, forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone without ever letting them return to the same place in your life. You can forgive someone and still choose distance. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for your healing is protect your peace so fiercely that you never again give access to someone who mishandled your heart the first time. Yes, it's hard, especially if you're someone who believes in grace, someone who believes in redemption and second chances. But there comes a time, for your own soul, when you must accept that not all relationships are meant to be restored. And not everyone who hurt you deserves a seat at your table, because some wounds, they don't need more conversation, they need closure. Some doors don't need to be reopened, they need to be sealed for good. And as we move forward, let's talk about what happens after that choice, after the door is closed, and how your silence, your peace, your growth becomes the loudest response of all. Earlier we talked about the power of closing the door on certain relationships, not from bitterness, but from wisdom. Now, let's go deeper into what that actually looks like in real life, especially when forgiveness gets confused with access. Let's be clear. Forgiveness is not a green light to let someone back in. It's not an invitation to return to the same cycle that wounded you. Forgiveness is for you, to help you move forward, to release the pain, and to make space for people who will love you in the right way. If someone's betrayal shattered your trust, shattered your peace, shattered your spirit, you don't owe them another chance. You don't owe them an opportunity to prove themselves again. Some people won't change. Some will never see the damage they've done, never fully grasp the weight of their words or the harm they caused. And here's the hard truth. You can't spend your life waiting for them to get it. That's not your job. It's not your responsibility to hope, to wait, to silently bleed while they take their time. Your job, your only job, is to recognize your worth and protect it like your life depends on it. Because sometimes it does. When someone's betrayal takes something sacred from you, your peace, your trust, your sense of safety, you have every right to draw a boundary, to say, "I forgive you, but I will not invite you back in." That doesn't make you cold. That doesn't make you bitter. It makes you wise. It means you've grown. It means you understand that your future matters more than any history you shared with someone who didn't know how to honor it. Some doors should stay closed. Some chapters are not meant to be reread, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away and never look back. If you let someone who betrayed you back into your life without strong boundaries, you risk something even more dangerous than getting hurt again. You risk normalizing that hurt. You start teaching yourself that this is what love looks like, and it's not. So let me ask you, how many times do you need to be hurt before you realize that some people simply are not capable of treating you the way you deserve to be treated? This isn't about vengeance. This is about healing. This is about knowing that you don't have to keep reopening the same chapter just because someone else refuses to read the lesson. And hear me when I say this. Letting go doesn't mean you're holding a grudge. Walking away doesn't mean you're full of hate. It means you've chosen to protect your heart. It means you value your peace over the temporary comfort of keeping someone around who never truly chose you in the first place. True healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like release, like saying, that pain will not define me anymore. Forgiveness is not pretending it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is freeing yourself from the weight of bitterness. But reconciliation, that's something entirely different. Reconciliation requires change, growth, accountability, and sometimes they just don't have it in them. You can't force someone to change. You can't force them to see their own patterns if they're not ready to look, but you can choose to protect your heart. You can choose to stop inviting someone back into your life who repeatedly shows you they're not capable of honoring it. So yes, forgive, release the bitterness. But understand this, forgiveness is not a return ticket. It's a choice to move forward in peace, even if that means moving forward without them. Because there's one more betrayal we need to talk about, one that often hides in plain sight. It's the betrayal of your boundaries, the slow, silent erosion of your no. And that kind of betrayal, it can be just as painful, just as dangerous, and even more overlooked. In the last part, we talked about the kind of betrayal that comes quietly, when someone repeatedly crosses your emotional boundaries. Now it's time to talk about why this happens and what it's costing you. There are so many of you listening right now who have let others cross lines that should have never been crossed. You didn't do it because you were weak. You did it because you were kind, because you didn't want to start conflict, because you thought maybe, just maybe, they'd eventually see your heart and change. You allowed people into your space, into your heart, into the sacred center of your life. Even when something deep inside you whispered, "This doesn't feel right," you ignored that voice. You stayed silent when you should have spoken up. And every time they ignored your boundaries, whether spoken or unspoken, they took a little more of you, a little more peace, a little more confidence, a little more light. Bit by bit, they chipped away at your sense of self. And each violation left a wound harder to heal than the one before. Some of you have been so afraid of confrontation, so terrified of being left behind, that you started to betray yourself, letting your needs go unmet, allowing others to treat you in ways that you never deserved. Here's the hard truth. When you don't enforce your boundaries, when you let them keep crossing the line without consequence, what you're really doing is teaching them that it's okay. You're sending the message that disrespect is tolerable, that your peace is negotiable, that your worth is flexible. Now maybe you're thinking, but they didn't mean it. They just don't realize how much it hurts. Let me be honest with you. People know. They may not always act out of cruelty, but they do know what they're doing. They've seen how you back down, how you apologize to keep the peace, how you keep showing up even when they don't. And if you keep letting them take, they will keep taking. So let me say this loud and clear. You do not owe anyone an apology for having boundaries. You don't owe explanations for protecting your peace. You are not selfish for saying no to people who refuse to respect your yes. And you are not heartless for refusing to keep letting people in who have proven, time and time again, that they do not value the privilege of access. Because, here's the truth, you cannot love others well if you do not love yourself enough to protect your well-being. You cannot give your best to the world if you're constantly being drained, disrespected, or emotionally manipulated by the people closest to you. And you absolutely cannot live a full, joyful life if you're constantly compromising your peace just to keep someone else comfortable. Some people in your life may love you, yes, but they don't respect your boundaries. And when they keep pushing, keep demanding, keep taking without giving, you have to make a decision. Ask yourself, is their approval more important than your peace? Is their comfort worth more than your sanity? Is their convenience greater than your heart? Once you answer those questions, and once you choose you must stand firm. Because setting boundaries doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. It makes you courageous. It makes you someone who finally understands that their time, their heart, their peace is not up for grabs. You are not here to be someone's afterthought. You are not here to be someone's emotional punching bag. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be respected. And if someone continues to violate your boundaries, if they disregard what you need in order to preserve themselves, then it's time to do the hard thing and let them go. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally believe you're worth more. Because anyone who truly loves you will never make you feel like you're too much. And anyone who respects you will never cross your boundaries without fearing the cost. Set your boundaries, protect your peace, and remember this truth: you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. The only person who needs to recognize it is you. And the moment you do, the right people will rise to meet it. And now, there's one final kind of betrayal we need to uncover. One that cuts even deeper, because it doesn't come from someone else. It comes from within.